Have you ever played a game for hours on end and just got sucked into the world of that game? Well, what if I told you that music plays a massive role in that immersion? Over the last 40 years or so, gaming has been one of the biggest hobbies in the world, garnering millions upon millions of players. There are so many games out there for everyone, be it single or multiplayer, but there's one thing all gamers have in common. We all got that one banger song or soundtrack that will randomly get stuck in our heads day after day and keep us coming back to these games. Music has been a means of human expression for thousands of years, whether it be classical or heavy metal, so it's only right that it would become an important part of video games. The evolution of music in gaming has invoked emotions within players through deep, thought-provoking stories, unforgettable boss fights, or beautiful and relaxing set pieces. When you load into a level or world for the first time, the music plays a huge role in your first impression. Yes, the visuals play an equally important role, but the music must complement the visuals in order to leave a lasting impact. Just imagine loading into a highly detailed and visually stunning world, but it was silent. It's not the same, right? Luckily, composers spend thousands of hours perfecting their work for these games, adding more life to these wonderful creations. In order to talk about the importance of music in games, we must first take a trip back in time. It all started back in the 8-bit era with pixelated beeps and boops coming together to make memorable and easy to listen to tracks that some of our parents even jammed out to. A standout example would be Super Mario Bros. On the NES, with its simple but sweet main theme that we've all heard at some points in our lives. One interesting fact about the NES is that it only had 5 channels of sounds. That's why all of the games had to use the same sounds, but switch up the order and tone of the sounds to stand out. In the following years, 16-bit systems like the SNES and Sega Genesis would take over the market and take gaming to a whole new level. With the new level of gaming means a new level of music would come along too, with songs being much more detailed. The SNES had 8 channels this time around, with a sampling system too, allowing composers to use instruments of their choice. Super Metroid uses this new detail to put players in a stressful situation, with this tense and fast-paced music within the opening minutes. Like I mentioned before, the music here perfectly fits the dark visuals, as Samus has to escape the Galactic Research Facility within a minute before it explodes. In this instance, Nintendo used the music to provide a sense of danger and urgency for the players that was fairly new for video games. An opposite to this would be Sonic the Hedgehog, as it took a different approach to music with its own iconic Green Hill Zone theme, providing a livelier and more joyful feeling for players as they speed through the colorful zone. Sega actually outdid Nintendo by a little bit, having 10 channels of sound. This gave composers more space to craft the classic tracks we know of today from this system. These themes were amazing for the impressionable kids like me to keep playing these games to see what else lies ahead. The next batch of systems came out during the mid-90s, and man, if you think the 16-bit consoles took things to another level, the N64 and PlayStation 1 took things to an entirely new dimension. The advent of 3D games changed the landscape of gaming forever. New limits with hardware were being pushed, and music was only getting more bombastic and carefully put together. Sound chips were unimaginably advanced, finally allowing for clearer audio, wide use of instruments, and even vocal tracks being included in some games. Games were getting filled with more content, leading to soundtracks getting longer and more time being spent to craft them. Final Fantasy VII probably has one of the best soundtracks in gaming history, as Square Enix masterfully crafted a timeless soundtrack that aided the world, the characters, and definitely the grand battles for its time. Battle themes have been around in RPGs since they were created, but Final Fantasy VII took the opportunity to make one of the most exhilarating themes ever by using a PlayStation sound chip. Several years later, the 6th generation of consoles brought some of the greatest and influential games to ever grace the planet, like Grand Theft Auto 3, Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy X, Metroid Prime, and many more. All of these games have something in common with each other. They all had great soundtracks that fit their worlds and used the life-changing power of the new consoles. The main themes in each of these titles are highly memorable. Loading into Liberty City for the first time, you are greeted with this piano-filled, snazzy, and rich theme. It encapsulates the attitude of the city so well that it became a classic overnight. Going to Traverse Town for the first time is a core memory for a lot of people, including myself, due to the soft and relaxed theme. After watching Melee's breathtaking intro, you are greeted with this easy to understand, yet expansive menu with the energetic theme to accompany it. Wait a sec, I haven't even got to Halo yet. Halo is one of the most revolutionary games of all time, as it evolved the first-person shooter genre in multiplayer gaming for generations to come. The harmonizing theme used a choir to further push what could be done with music in video games. Music in video games wasn't just random, pixelated sounds mushed together anymore. It was art. While the recognition of these themes could be attributed to the popularity of the games, it still shows the impact of the music, since the players come back to those tracks over time through the soundtracks being on streaming platforms and YouTube nowadays. Stereo sound finally came into play too, so those with the money to afford stereo systems were rewarded with incredible sounds and booming tracks. The next generation of consoles introduced higher end CDs with enhanced playback capabilities, and even Blu-ray for the PlayStation 3. More than ever, game developers were scrambling to take advantage of the limitless potential of this life-changing hardware to make their games come closer to reality. Yet, there was always one company that stood out above the rest, and it was the beloved veteran group of developers at Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog's Uncharted series may not have had the best music ever, but it was more than enough for the adventures Nathan Drake and his crew went on. The lush jungles and forests you explore are aided by the action-packed, tribal-like songs that make for a one-of-a-kind experience. Music in games is only getting more creative as the years went on. A standout game for the next generation of consoles in terms of music was Doom 2016, as it revitalized the use of rock and heavy metal in games with its chaotic soundtrack. It's honestly really immersive, since it makes you feel like you're the Doom guy stuck in hell trying to fight off these destructive demons. Persona 5's soundtrack really excelled when it came to musical and cinematic timing, as well as the vast range of tracks that follow players throughout the whole game. The main overworld theme, Beneath the Mask, sets a great example for other JRPGs, as it really zones in on the main premise of the game, being that you run a group of teenagers known as Phantom Thieves trying to change people's hearts. In terms of a more relaxed and melodic soundtrack, Minecraft is sitting at a table by itself, as it was put together by the brilliant C418. Minecraft is a game that everyone and their mom has played, and one of the reasons for it being historical is its music. Minecraft was a game that I grew up loving, since I always had something to do in it. The music allowed me to get even more lost in its blocky, yet one-of-a-kind world. Whether I was in an overworld building a house, or lost in a dark and menacing cave, the music and ambiance allowed me to clear my thoughts and just have fun. As a little kid, I always messed with the music disc and creative, because each track was unique and presented a different emotion to me. Minecraft is just a legendary game that will live on forever with this meditative soundtrack. Music in video games has gotten to the point where certain tracks can be played at random, and have people who may not have played a lot of games growing up recognizing where they're from. But I haven't even got to one of the best, most hype, significant parts about video game music and games in general: the boss fights. A fantastic boss fight is incomplete without an amazing song to accompany it. Boss themes are supposed to push the player to get the job done, with their blood pumping, fast tempo, stress-inducing orchestras, choirs, and heavy-hitting basses. Kingdom Hearts 2 pumped out banging boss fights and themes, left and right, but its crowning jewel was Rage Awakened for the Lingering Will. For your first time fighting this insanely hard boss, you won't forget the theme since you'll be dying over and over again, that's for sure. But in all seriousness, the theme kicks in flawlessly with some build up during the cutscene before. It lets you know off the bat that this fight will test the skills you acquire throughout the game to the max. It's like the culmination of everything in the game, since it's backed up by an unforgettable fight. I personally think it's the best boss battle in theme in a game ever, since I'll never recover from the ass whooping I got all those years ago. Of course, Kingdom Hearts 2 isn't the only game with amazing boss fight themes. God of War 3's final boss with Zeus acts as an initial finale to that series, with the battle that's been building up for multiple games. You're taking on the most powerful Greek god there is, so it was bound to be a special fight. The first phase's theme starts off slowly, then steadily picks up as the player gains control of Kratos. The transitions in between set pieces changes the theme too, so it's not static. Even though it's reused for the second phase of the fight, Kratos' theme shows to players that this is his moment to finally kill Zeus and get his revenge on all of the gods. One neat detail about this theme is that the choir sings in Greek instead of English, further immersing players into the world presented to them. The brass instruments used go above and beyond in terms of displaying Kratos' rage. But when it comes to remixing the main theme of the game for the final boss, Sonic Unleashed does a 10 out of 10 job with this. After your long journey to reconnect the continents to stop Dark Gaia, you're rewarded with an epic final boss and theme to put a cherry on top. Sega hired an entire orchestra to compose the soundtrack for this game, and it paid off big time. The brass, drums, and strings are phenomenal to close out the world adventure you were sent on. It's easily one of my favorite boss themes ever, so I often find myself listening to it in my free time. Music has been a huge part of human history and has altered the way we hear and interpret sounds. Video games and music are a match made in heaven since it brings together two completely different art forms perfectly. I'll never forget some of the stunning games I've played since I'll always have their music to go back to. I made this video to remind people of how crucial music is to video games. For those out there who may not care or really focus on the music in games, try to take a minute to appreciate all the effort and love put into these soundtracks. You never know when you'll find that one track that will change your perspective on gaming as a whole. Before I go, I want you to post your favorite video game soundtrack and tell me why in the comments below. I read all of my comments, so I'll get back to you in good time. If you're looking for more content from my channel, there will be a video just for you right here. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video and took something out of it. As always, take care of yourself and do great things every day. Thank you.